on this computer. Boom, there we are now recording. Thanks, Sabir. Okay, let's just make sure that you can see this. So if we talk about the hash change, yeah, okay. Is that big enough on your screen if you're looking at it?
Yep.
Cool. Yep. Okay, so let's first talk about the problem that we're going to try and solve using this event. So far, if we think about navigation structures, so even if you look at my URL at the moment, we can clearly see we've got like mirror.com/app/board, and then like this unique identifier for the board. I've got a structure, what we call like a navigation structure. And I would think about, if I had a different board, I would keep the same app/board and then change this and probably show me a different board. But in order for that to work, I have to send a request back to a server, and the server is going to send me back the right file or the right information. So if we quickly model that in a normal client-server relationship, our favorite diagram, we have a request being made, say for example, slash, like we did in bookmarks maybe. It would show you a different page according to /bookmarks, maybe rather than /cats or something, right? Different URLs correspond to different pages. So we have a URL, individual URLs for different page. And that's something that we think about when we're designing so the user journey. They want to have like easy to read URLs and know where they are at and for things to make sense. But in order for this navigation structure to work, we need a request and response cycle. We need to say, okay, I want this page /bookmarks. So you type it into your browser up here, you make the request and your server sends you back that file. And that's how we've been solving this navigation problem, right? Navigation. Just give me a quick thumbs up if we're on board with the idea of how we've been solving it so far with using requests and responses in Sinatra, for example. Quick thumbs up from you too. Nice, thanks. So instead, in a front-end app, remember, in a front-end app, we don't have any of this stuff, none of the server-side stuff. So we have to think about how do we recreate the navigation structure without a server sending us or interpreting requests and sending us files back. And this is where we can use the browser and its set of inbuilt events that we can hook into. And we're going to hook into one in particular called the Hashchange event. Now, this is not the only way to do this, but this is hopefully the simplest way we're going to think about for the moment. So we can see how front-end apps can also have a navigation structure. So what we're going to try and do is in the browser, in the browser on this side of things, and we're going to essentially model this request response cycle and say, if the URL is a certain URL, go fetch me this page. So rather than the request responses, we're going to say, listen to events, specifically listen to Hashchange events. And if we have a certain Hashchange, and so a Hashchange, if we give an example of this, is part of your browser URL. So if the browser URL changes, then trigger an event and use this event to then show a different page. Similar to this request response cycle. So you can think about the request being changing the URL and the response being showing a different page. But clearly we're not going to be using HTTP because we don't have a server. We're just going to be listening to the Hashchange event. So if I open up my my inspector, Am I sharing? Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just double checking. If I open up my console and like, I don't know, let's go to my favorite website, BBC. Just kidding. And have a look at the window location. This gives me a lot of things that I can use to have a look at where I'm at in the URL in up here. There's a lot of information. If I want to add in a hash symbol and give some information, let's just for that for the moment, and then have a look at what the hash is. It gives me some information here. It just extracts everything from the hash onwards. So we can potentially start to say, okay, depending on what the information in the URL is, show me different things. And when this changes, we can use the event that happens when the browser detects the URL change. We can look at the window location hash and say, whatever it is, do some more logic with. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate in just a second. We're going to look at the event that happens when we change the URL up here that has this hash in it. And then we're going to use the location, whatever this is, to then determine what we see on the page in a way to replicate fetching files from a server. Does that high level make sense what I'm going to start to demonstrate?
Yeah. Do you mind repeating that bit, last bit, please?
Can you be, yeah, sure, but can you be more specific?
So after you printed what's after the hash, I didn't really understand what you said after.
Cool. So when we change this URL that has a hash in it, what I want to do, let's say, for example, I type in Sabir, I want to, whenever this changes, the browser detects the change and creates a hash change event. What I want to do is say, when that event happens, I want to update the page somehow. In a way, in the same way when we go /bookmarks, I expect the page to refresh and reload with information that we grabbed from the server. But we don't want to have a request response cycle. So rather than wait for HTTP to handle that request, I want to hook into this event and then update the page dynamically. And we can do that because the browser detects the URL change. And I can look at what information is by using window location hash. Because if I did it again now, this gives me Cydia. So I can get information about what the current URL is using JavaScript, as I just see in the console here, window.location.hash. And I'm going to look at the hash change event and say, when it does change, get me that information and then update the page.
How are we changing the hash? We manually changed it, but how are we changing the hash?
Cool. Yeah. Great question. We can have essentially links, anchor links, that when you click on, have an instruction to say, go to this place. Like you click on anything that has a link, you can just say, put into the reference, the hyperlink reference, this like hash Sabir, for example.
Nice. Yeah.
So you can click on a link. It says your browser then directs you to the hash, whatever it is. We'll create the hash change event. We can go say when the hash change event happens, then update the page with whatever we want. So this is the moment we're sort of high level. I'm going to demonstrate this in code in just a second, but I want to have like that in your heads before I start writing some code. And the reason we're doing this is because we're trying to replicate the navigation structure. We're familiar with it using Sinatra. We have /bookmarks or /bookmarks /something else if you want to have nested things in order to serve back different files. So we're going to try and replicate that by using the browser by itself, looking at the browser events, particularly the Hashchange event. I'm happy to spend more time in here for another few minutes to explain more things, just to be at a high level before I dive into some code, but I will spend more time at the end fielding questions. How do we feel? More questions right now? Now's the time to ask. Spear, how do you feel at the moment?
I think I just don't get the concept about having the hash and then whatever you put out after it. What I'm expecting to see back, I'm not really fully understanding that.
Cool. So maybe the demonstration will help there.
Okay.
So why are we using this and we don't like do as normal GET requests?
Yeah, great question. We've seen how we can use HTTP requests to get back different files for the user to see. And that requires having a server running code that you've written to handle those requests and respond giving text back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to run a Sinatra app as well as your front-end app. So we're trying to figure out a way to not need a server. So we're just doing front-end apps and see how we can replicate that navigation structure.
Okay.
Yeah, because these past few weeks, we're dealing with front-end development, which is just in the browser.
And is this one, the Hashchange that you're going to show us, is this one used more often than JavaScript plus Sinatra? Only front-end based?
Yeah, great question. Sometimes they use both together. So a lot of routing that's done on the front end, a lot of navigation that's done on the front end, uses events like the Hashchange to replicate that behavior. That's quite common. When you want information to be sent to a server, you'll also do that as well. So common structures, you'll have a front-end app that has its own navigation plus a request to API to grab data, because it's much quicker just to grab data and then have front-end server it and manipulate it, rather than rely on server to render everything and then send it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if we decouple it and just say, back-end, you're just responsible for giving us data. The front end is responsible just for manipulating it and dynamically rendering it according to different file structures. That's a common architecture.
Good, thank you.
So we should be comfortable thinking about classic web development where we have models, views, and controllers like we did with Sinatra, and that way of doing web development. And we should be common with writing APIs and then writing front-end applications that consume them. And that's what we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. They're two different styles, but very common. You can definitely mix them as well. There's lots of mixing of these two things. But as long as we focus on them individually, we should have like a good understanding of them at a high level that we can then keep learning more about it. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool. Okay, let's dive into it and then ask more questions. Cool. So what do I need? First of all, I need an opening page. And here I'm going to add in, let's go quite simply with an app.js file that loads my app, I guess, as a result. So let's have an empty div that's waiting to be written to, let's call this app. Okay, and in my app.js, This is where I'm going to wait for this page to load before then I insert my app into the element. So we're going to do window.add event listener. And we're going to listen to the load event and execute a block of code. And inside here, we'll do probably the thing that's quite common now to you is we're going to grab the document get element by ID and get that app element. And then I'm going to create an object. Let's say I'm going to create a list of 3 links that I can click on, which will then take me to different pages. All right. Let's keep it simple as possible. So if I just create a list object, that's Ruby, and whack that in there. Okay, so that's at a high level what I want to do. I guess my list, I got to create my list now. So let's go to list.js and make sure that's added. Put that up there. Okay, so I'm loading 2 JavaScript files. One's the list and one's the app. App will just create my list and render it. So here I'm going to have a list. I need to stop. My job's in Ruby, so my context switching a lot. Class list. Here we are. Constructor, and then we are going to do a few things. At the bottom of this constructor, we're going to make sure we set up our component. And what does that look like? Let's say we want 3. Let's go with the crowd. Sabir, what's your favorite vegetable?
I don't know. Sweet potato.
Sweet potato. Fantastic choice. And Anastasis, what's your favorite? Let's go also favorite vegetable.
Carrots.
Say again.
Carrots.
Carrots. And let's do one more, Amy.
Technically not a vegetable, but cherry tomatoes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love tomatoes.
That's a fruit, right?
Yeah, I know. That's nice.
Okay, cool. And I'm passing in the element, so I need an element variable and this dot element. Okay, so in this setup function, there's a few things I want to do. I want to get there in a second. This dot render, and this render function is going to do the thing that we know, where it's this dot element dot inner HTML is going to then show something on the page. And so what I want it to do is show me links to each of these lovely, lovely vegetables. And so let's go through and loop through each one. And veggie, and we want to create some HTML. So we want an anchor link, and I want my hrefs to be I want it to be something like, I've got to have that hash symbol there to make sure the URL works. And then I want to add in there the veggie. And then let's make sure we actually show what it is. So this will give me a link that my browser will go to. to whatever is the URL, and we'll go hash and then the name of the veggie. And then I want the link to display as veggie, and that's what I want to happen. And it will map through it, so I'll create an array of this. So at the end of it, I need to join it together. Okay, so then I need to, probably the last part here is to make sure my browser can listen to that hash change event and then update the page. So we'll do this in the setup function to make sure it happens straight away. So I want to do something like window.add event listener, and then listen to the hash change event and do some stuff. What I want to do is, let's just keep it quite simple actually. Let's just essentially rewrite the page to be what it was at window.location.hash. Let's keep that as simple as possible. So what I want to see is, rather than the whole list, I click on the list. I'm just going to see the veggie that I want, whatever is at the hash, whatever this will be.
Sorry, can I just ask about line 17?
Yeah.
After the href, the first part of it, the string, that's what's going to be on the link itself. So,
Other way around. So inside the tag, so this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. What you'll see is this is the content. This is what the browser will go to when you click on it.
okay. Most of the time that would be the same then. As in,
I could do something like, I could say, like, rather than when I click on any of the sweet potato, carrots, or cherry tomatoes, I could go to like HTTPS and say execute via HTTP, execute a request to go to bbc.co.uk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that were to happen, all my links would have bbc.co.uk.
Okay.
And it would go to that location. I'm saying, rather than go using HTTP, just use a hash to add that to the URL, and also this. And that will then give me my hash change event, because the browser sees there's a hash change.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to make sure there's a hash change event that I can hook into. So if the browser does detect a hash change event, it then executes this block of code that I've told it to.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay, should we just have a look and see what bugs happen when I try and run this? Any other thoughts or questions on what you're seeing at the moment? Cool.
I presume we have to define somewhere the hashes, right?
The what, sorry?
We have to define somewhere the hashes, right? So we will have the link when we click, it will go and redirect to the hash, but
exactly,
we will need somewhere to mention the hashes in the HTML page, or not?
And so this, yeah, great question. So this render, when I create it on app.js, I create my list. When I use new, it runs the constructor function of the object, which sets the element, which is the app element, creates this property value pair, and then runs the setup function, which adds the event listener to the window for the hash change event, and then gets the class to run its render method, which updates the page. So when I run it, I expect to see 3 links on the page, because I run through each of the vegetables. And for each item, I then return a string that is HTML text. So I set the inner HTML of my element to be a list of these strings. which my browser then renders as that. Three links. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You sure? We can spend some more time talking about this, but this is important.
Actually, I don't get it. If you
Which
don't the whole thing. The bit after Anastasia's question.
Yeah, can you be more specific?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what to say to be specific, but yeah, I guess I just didn't understand the response to Anastasia's question.
So we have the three links, right?
Yeah.
When we click the one of the link, what will happen? Except like this, what I'm like the URL will change, right?
Yes. So when I click the link, my browser will then try and direct me to this location here, right? Because this is the href that says when I click it and go to this location, and when that happens, my browser detects the hash change, and then this runs. I guess actually I should put in here event prevent default to make sure there's no behavior that happens as a result. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I click on this, my browser then goes to this location, which then gets intercepted by my event listener. That stops the event and then sets the page to be whatever is window.location.hash, which should be hash and then whatever vegetable I click on. So if I click on carrots, if I click on this carrots link, I expect to see just carrots on the page. Yeah, if I click on carrots, my browser makes this Hashchange event. So then this code runs and I set the element to just be whatever is the window location hash. And at that point in time, I click on it, it should just be this. Imagine this is like saying, whatever link you click on here, whatever link you make here, I want that text to then display on my page.
Currently, the link is just one, isn't it? There's not three separate links.
Okay, can you see here? There are three links.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just because they're all squished on one line, I could probably wrap this in a paragraph, which is a block element, to make it. Yeah.
What does event.prevent default do again?
It prevents the default behavior.
So what would be the default behavior? So if you didn't have that line?
Like a page refresh, I imagine. We can have a look in a second. But yeah, it's a good question. I think it's just a page refresh by default.
Yes, we had it in the context of the submit button of a form in the past. So it stops the actual submit action being carried out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Nice. I think Anastasis, you might remember that.
Yep. I remember very well.
Cool. Let's have a look. I click on carrots and I can see that I just see carrots on the page. Yeah, and I've navigated to essentially a new page. Right? Nothing's actually changed apart from I've changed the URL and I've changed the content on the page, but this is how we can simulate essentially a navigation structure. Imagine, for example, if I did /veggie and then / let's say this is all going to be like Sabia's vegetables that she likes. I go to sweet potato, I can see, like, for example, I'm simulating like a navigation structure. And so I can create just on the front end using this hash change event. Now imagine like I didn't have to just like add the window location hash. Maybe next time I can like have an entire different object responsible for that HTML, like a vegetable, like a new vegetable or something. Okay, thoughts or questions at the moment about this demonstration of using a hash change event to say when we change the URL using a hash, how do we hook into that event, then update the page dynamically?
So the line of code that is responsible for showing when you click the link is line 12, right?
And so yeah, line 18 and line 12, can you see whenever we set the inner HTML of an element, the browser goes through about 60 frames per second, always updating and looking for things to change. So as soon as you set the property, in about a blink of an eye, less than that, the browser will then paint the page again. So the refresh rate of the browser, not quite a refresh, but the paint rate of the browser is about 60 times every second. So as soon as you change one of these properties, the browser will automatically show it. And this part here is only executed when the hash change event happens. So I could do it like manually myself, right? As soon as I add it in here, the page updates because it detects the hash change. Anything that changes that has a hash in it. Cool. Okay. More questions because I want to essentially hand this over to you and get you to do essentially the same thing here to play around with it.
If you refresh the page on the browser, does that go back to what you had in the test?
When I refresh the page, it will go back to the original 3 links. The URL won't change though. So it's not quite similar. Good question.
But I mean, in real life, when you click on one of these links, I assume that we expect something on that page, like a text or something different, or is this what we expect? Just the hashtag and.
You can do anything you want here, right? So anything that you want to set your inner HTML to, you can. So I'm just demonstrating because I wasn't going to spend more time thinking about what I want the page to look like. But yeah, you could have like new vegetable, and then I guess what is the current vegetable? I guess I'll just pass in the window dot location hash that will have the information on it, and then this object's now responsible for showing me what it's going to be like. I could either do it here or just have it itself and pass in this element maybe and have it all encapsulated in the vegetable. And have this object responsible showing me what's going to be. Maybe we'll have like pictures and whatnot. But the way to do it is just simply say, hook into the event listener, the hash change event, and then update the page using inner HTML. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Nice. Cool. Okay. Let's pair up and let's spend the next 30 to 40 minutes just playing around with this code. I'm not going to give you everything in here, but I'm going to give you essentially the skeletons of this like that to play around with, and that's fine, and that's fine. So feel free to extend this as much as you want. I'm going to add this as snippets.
Who are our pairs today?
Let me double check in a second. Hold on. Create a text snippet. This is your HTML. And the other two can be JavaScript.
And hear my husband playing Ring Fit Adventure next door. It just sounds hilarious. And it's just the sound. This little animation encouraging him to like exercise harder.
What is it? Like a exercise app or something?
Yeah, it's called Ring Fit Adventure. It's like a Nintendo Switch game where it comes with like a special controller that's like a resistance band. So it makes you, and like you put one of the controllers on your leg to sense movement, and so it makes you kind of fight monsters by doing exercise in front of your television. It's very funny to watch. And Nintendo must be feeling quite smug about having managed to release it this year, because I imagine that really hasn't hurt their sales.
Does that make sense? What I've shared in the Slack channel? Give me a quick thumbs up if the snippets make sense, and what we're about to start doing. Cool. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks, Amit. Thanks, Sabia. Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Awesome. And Ellen, you asked me what pairs are. Which ones were the last ones? Okay, so I think we did this set. So I think, are we now on this set, Tuesday, November 17th, this set? Amy and Ellen, Ed and Sabir, and Sasha and Anna? Or Katerina, let's get you involved.
Katerina's gonna get involved.
Yeah.
Woo! Sorry, I'm clearly just absolutely mental this evening, but I'm holding it in relatively.
Cool. Sabir, do you mind pairing with Katerina?
Yes, I do. No, I'm joking. yeah, of course.
In a dramatic turn of events, Sabir and I have become mortal enemies.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to play with Katerina.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so let's spend some time. I've got extensions if you want them. Have a play, and then we're going to gather back around 8 o'clock. Okay. Cool, awesome. I'm going to put actually everyone in breakout rooms. I think that's going to be much more fun if I do that rather than we all disperse. So more breakout rooms. I guess I should pause the record.
Getting the link structure to have the ID, and then we're just trying to play around with then using that ID to identify the object that we actually then want to display things of. So we were playing around with that. That was where we were about to debug. So.
Nice. Cool. Giving you no hints. Keep going. I'm sure you'll figure it out. That sounds cool. Below Ellen is Amy, which I assume is going to be the same thing because you're pairing with Ellen. But what did you learn? What did you find, Amy?
Yeah, well, I guess the same as Ellen, but we actually started with an animal array, and then we created a different class that had the talk function, and we applied that to the inner HTML. It was quite interesting.
Animal talks. Do animals talk?
Ask Dr. Dolittle.
And what about you, Amit?
Yeah, as I said, we got when we were in our Hashchange event, we tried like this dot element will now equal something else, but because we're in the window, this that doesn't, like, there is no this dot element. So then we didn't know how to display new text in window class.
Does your main class, have you injected the element into that main class?
Yes.
Cool. I'll come hang out with you folks afterwards and let's have a look together, right? Cool. Severe and Katrina. Start with Severe.
So I, yeah, we were just going through the code to understand what each line meant, and we were at the point where kind of calling on the event. So I was trying to understand the concept behind the Hashchange before you called us back in, like what the reason is for having it.
Cool. Do you feel like you have like an explanation for
that? So Katerina explained, and I think I get it. So instead of creating lots of different routes, you do it just through this Hashchange, where you're able to create multiple routes, and I guess it eliminates the need for many different files to have different routes in the code that belongs to that.
Cool. Pretty much is exactly right. And the thing I would check with that is that it's not necessarily the files themselves, because we can still have a bunch of view files that we use for the browser to show text from. And the thing that it's replacing is that HTTP request response cycle. So we need something to happen to trigger the page to update. We're used to doing it through HTTP, sending a request, getting that response back. And now we're going to say, wait for the URL to change and then update the page.
Okay.
So one's using HTTP as like the trigger, and now we're using the URL change or the hash change as the trigger.
Okay.
Nice job. Cool. I shared the extension. If you want to keep working on this to sort of like cement and consolidate your knowledge and thoughts about it, what would be a good outcome here is if you feel pretty confident, or you can explain at a high level how the Hashchange event works. I'm not expecting anything like super detailed, but just being comfortable with these exercises. That's about a good place to be. And it will be useful for the notes, the new summary challenge, to think about your article summaries in this way, where if you click on an article, a news headline, you get taken and see that article summary page in the same way using a Hashchange event. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do tonight before we keep working or pairing on things is to link to the challenge next week. If anyone wanted to get started at a flexible time Friday, Saturday, because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to finish the new summary challenge before next week. So I wanted to give everyone optional tasks to do. So let me quickly find it. And that's not the URL. So let's find it the other way. Katerina, am I missing something? What's it called?
Sorry, what are we looking for?
The chitter. It's not called the chitter content. It's just called the front end API change. Found it.
What means?
You're the coach effect.
Sorry,
Coach, can you help me? And then we figure it out, right? That's the coach effect.
I literally, you just rub a duck. You just use a rubber duck. There's thunder and lightning, and I got quite distracted for a second there and started thinking about thunder and lightning. So that was a confession.
This is the end of the unit challenge. This is going to be for next week from Thursday onwards, but if anyone wants to start it now or just have a look at it, that's it here. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I'll talk about it a little bit more next week. But if anyone wants to have a look at that, that's there. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions for me before we break for this evening? I'm going to jump into a chat with Amit and Anastasis. Anything on your minds at the moment based on this session?
So next week, is it going to be our last week of JavaScript, or are we going to do more?
Great question. So this next week brings the end our modern web development module, where we finish working with JavaScript as like our focus, and then we'll have a week off, a week break, and then we'll come back or you'll come back, and Katerina will talk more about. She'll probably talk some more next week about what the next module is going to be about.
So with this Chitter Challenge 2, Return of the Peeps.
I found it funny. Yeah.
With it, are we working on this during next week, or is this what we're picking up from Thursday of? End of week challenge, like.
Ordinarily, I had budgeted or I had planned that it would be from Thursday as a normal end of unit challenge over the flexible time, Friday and Saturday, and then we chat about it on Sunday. Given that Sunday's the end of module, we don't have a Sunday, so you probably do it in your own time, flexible time, and maybe over the week break, up to you, and then you start the next module. So I would encourage you to focus on the core objectives for this unit, and then do the challenge. But you might end up finishing the new summary challenge early, in which case that would be what I would suggest you do.
Cool. So this is kind of going to be a bit of holiday homework as well, because Thursday is the last day before the break.
Exactly.
It's not like Thursday. It's not like Sunday next week is the last day before the break. It's the Thursday.
No, exactly. The last coaching session on Thursday. Technically, it's still like Friday and Saturday is your flexible time, but the last coaching session will be Thursday.
So your last day as well, Thursday.
There is the face of a man looking forward to having his evenings back. Now you know how hard it is for us, Ed.
Yeah, Ed.
Work.
Yeah, you're the
evening of study.
I've joined the ranks, and I'm full of admiration. I was even beforehand. Full of respect and admiration for all the amount of hours you're all putting in. I think it's fantastic. You're also by far my favorite bunch of students, but I can't really say that, can I? But,
it did.
No, your godchildren.
Spend a lot more time, Anyway, that's.
You do all rock. Although we're quite lucky. Our makers are pretty lovely most of the time. Like genuinely, we're pretty lucky. I'm not saying you guys aren't awesome. You are.
That's what he says about his godchildren to one another. So I'm sure he's saying that.
Yeah, Ed's given us an insight into all his little psychological games.
That's really great that you remember that. I feel been caught out there. That's good.
What does he do? Because now I feel like whatever he's done to his godchildren, he's probably done to me at some point, which sounds weird, but Ed used to be my manager for a bit, so I'm wondering what happened there.
Well, did he ever tell you that you were his favorite colleague?
No, he didn't.
He's getting really careful now, right?
Sadly not. So there we go. Sadly not. So maybe I wasn't privy to that. Sorry, this got really odd, everyone. I apologize. I'm in a strange mood.
That's actually made my day.
Basically, the coaching team's really weird. If you haven't noticed this already, like you've had a little bit of a glimpse here and there. You've met Kay, me, and Ed, and you've probably got a bit of a flavour, but we're all quite odd in our own way. But I think weird is good. So there we are.
Yeah, I think we were even lucky to meet Evgeny just before he left.
Evgeny is so great.
He's now off in Portugal, having a grand old time.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Is he doing anything there?
Having a break.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's quite envious. The weather there is fantastic.
We'll go and visit him. I'm sure that won't be awkward at all. We can go on a group trip. Hi, Evgeny. You weren't expecting us, but here we all are, and uninvited.
Help us with our project.
Yeah. I did a 26-mile trekathon in Filmmakers a couple of years ago, and one of the really funny things is I walk really quickly, but the person who really was like up my backside the whole entire time was Evgeny. He was like always like 20 minutes right behind me and made me walk the fastest I've ever walked in 26 miles. He was just he's a machine, and that story is got no real purpose apart from
other than to show us that you still were faster than he was.
Yeah, good point, Evan. And why didn't you just walk alongside Yevgeny? He's delightful. Why did you have to walk in front of Yevgeny?
I don't know. Like I'm just like no. No, I can't remember why.
This sounds like both of them are very competitive with each other.
I can't imagine Yevgeny being very like. I mean, I can imagine him being competitive, but he's also very like chilled and quite like calm.
What we're supposed to read behind this is that Evgeny was just walking at the speed that he wanted to walk, which happened to be fast, in a sort of delightful way that was taking in the scenery and having a way of a time. And then there was Ed in front being like, no,
pretty much. I felt like, yeah.
Like grumble, grumble.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I was talking about that because someone said about Yevgeny walking, and so that was the memory that I had. Folks, what joy! I think we should get those T-shirts. Return of the Peeps.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that could be like my favorite.
I learned how to phrases said. I can't remember them now, but Eden is definitely one to be seen in comedy, I think.
It's just so funny because Peeps is so weird. Like when I first saw that, I was like, I genuinely was so confused. Like when I first saw that challenge, just about the peep thing, I was like, why? Like, what are peeps and like why?
You know that peeps are those psychedelically colored marshmallow birds in America?
No.
Okay, so they're a thing that comes out around Halloween for trick or treat. These like vibrantly colored marshmallow birds. And if you ever watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver hates them. And every Halloween has a whole thing about how dreadful they are. I'll see if I can find. There'll probably be a clip online. I'll see if I can find it.
Well, I see it as cartoons. Peep the bird.
So this is what they look like. Let's find an image. Oh, there's a whole Wikipedia article. That'll do. Oh, no, not Wikipedia. The link, please. So that is what a peep is. If you go to that link, there will be a picture.
They look like marshmallow blobs. Just like
yeah, they are marshmallows, but they're really bad ones. like really bad ones.
Those that cause really bad time.
And now.
And I think this is the video. I'm just gonna say he doesn't like them.
Now.
I will watch that later. I'm not gonna watch it right now.
Yeah, so you don't have to watch it right now. Just enjoy.
All right, then. I'm going to go jump in and chat with Amit and Anastasis. Otherwise, I guess your priorities for the next couple of days is to have a look at the objectives for this unit and think about JavaScript, think about the new summary challenge, and keep working on it, or have a look at the API front-end challenge. Those are the things I would do. First, just JavaScript knowledge. Second, new summary. Third, API challenge. Cool. Adios, folks.
Katrina, do you still want to pair?